Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. Okay, we're going to get started. We have established a quorum. This is a public hearing in the Committee of the Whole. The purpose of this public hearing is to take testimony on resolutions 160-035, 130-036, 130-037, and 160-038. Mr. Christmas. So get ready to call you Mr. Decker. Mr. Christmas, please read the titles of the resolution.
Resolution 160035, approving the reappointment of Beverly Coleman to the Board of Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, and Resolution 160036, approving the appointment of Clarina Tolson to the Board of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, and Resolution 160037, confirming the appointment of Sozy Pedro Talante, Esquire, as the City Solicitor. And finally, Resolution 160038, approving the appointment of Felicide Alana Piccoon Lewis to the Philadelphia Water, Sewer, Stormwater Rate Board.
Thank you, sir. Let's bring up our first panel. The first witnesses to testify will be Beverly Coleman, Clarina Tolson, and Felicide Ola Piccoon Lewis. And I must tell you, Ms. Lewis, I saw you like 5 minutes ago, and without thinking, I thought you were just down here to say, hey, I miss you guys. And you did say that, but I forgot that you were actually going to be one of the witnesses testifying today. So that apparently is the real reason that you came down here today.
And to say hi.
And say hi. All right. All right. It's all good. Good seeing you for whatever reason. Thank you all very much. Do you have a testimony? Would you all like to testify on your own behalf? Statements? Or you ready to just get whizzed through and we all say hi?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I am awake.
All right, it's no problem.
Good afternoon, Council President Clark and members of the Committee of the Whole. I'm Beverly Coleman, Assistant Vice President for Community Relations at Temple University. I'm not going to read my testimony, but I just wanted to make a few remarks. I'd like to continue to serve the city by being a member of the board of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority. I think that I can make a contribution in several ways. I think first by supporting the city's Office of Infrastructure and Transportation and working very closely with Deputy Managing Director Tolson. I think it's also important that over the last 7 to 8 years, the city and SEPTA have established a much stronger and more collaborative working relationship, and I would like to continue to work on that and support that. And then finally, I think that there is a strong connection between economic development and employment and transit, and I would like to see a much closer understanding of the intersection of those and work with SEPTA and the city to look for opportunities to link transit to job growth and to housing development, especially in low-income neighborhoods. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I have a question, but I don't think it would be fair since you're just getting on. This SEPTA, it's always been my belief, and to some degree, evidence supports it, is the level of subsidy for the county of Philadelphia versus the surrounding counties that make up the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. And I guess it's always been, at least my belief and others, that to some degree, although the entire system is subsidized to some degree, it's always been my belief that Philadelphia division subsidized the surrounding counties as it relates to ridership and revenue going to those. And at one point, I actually had a conversation here where I made a recommendation. I wasn't a council president then, I was less responsible. So I would kind of say all kinds of crazy stuff. But that, and since we've actually had great leadership, that issue has gone away. But I just wonder that we actually talked about succeeding from SEPTA and having its own transit division. And some of us who are older actually remember when PTC was around. It was, and people look, I see some people looking at me shaking their head. I know they were around when that happened. So, and it came at a time when there were some real concerns about meeting the transportation needs of the residents of the city of Philadelphia and the people that use the Philly division versus suburbans. And was always this conversation about, you know, ridership in Philly. You would see the buses in Philly and the subways always packed and stacked. And yet you would see a train in the suburban division riding at 10 o'clock at night with 2 people on it. And the question was, well, why can we continue to have that level of ridership continue with obviously not enough people to support the line, but yet in the city of Philadelphia there was reductions in transit routes and continued overcrowding on buses throughout the Philadelphia region. And that's just a trend. I'm not going to ask you a question because you're not there yet. But just keep that in mind when it relates to the disbursement of revenues as it relates to the Philly transit portion of SEPTA versus some of the suburban, because I just genuinely believe in, as I said earlier, there were numbers of support that basically Philadelphia was helped in the ridership, and the revenues generated from Philly ridership was basically subsidizing the other portions of the system.
Okay. I would like to work with SEPTA and the city to be able to respond to your question and to give you statistics on what the subsidy really is, and what if Philadelphia is putting in maybe more than its fair share. I do know that 80% of the ridership, the rides actually originate from the city of Philadelphia, and I also know that 50% of SEPTA employees, there are approximately 9,000, live in the city of Philadelphia. So I know there's some economic benefit to the city, but I think that our taking a deeper look at that in your question and being very thoughtful about it would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, this whole notion, and unless this comes out of the conversation from Harrisburg where people are always complaining about people outside the city about Philadelphia being a drain on the state, and the simple reality is that Philadelphia is the economic engine for the state. Mm-hmm. When you look at the revenues that's generated in the city that we send to the state, we don't get nearly the return on investment, particularly as it relates to our schools and other aspects of it. And to some degree, I think it's a similar kind of situation with the transit bit. Okay. But thank you, and thank you for all your good work in the past on the TOD that you worked on. I remember that. I'm sorry. Ms. Tulsa? Yes. And I promise I won't interrupt until everybody speaks, and then we'll take questions from my friends and colleagues.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council President Clark and members of the Committee of the Whole. My name is Clarina Tolson, Deputy Managing Director responsible for Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sanitation Policy, Planning, and Services. It is an honor to sit before you today as one of Mayor Kinney's 2 nominees to serve as Philadelphia's representative on the SEPTA Board of Directors. Every day, almost 500,000 people use SEPTA's transit services within the city of Philadelphia, making almost 1 million daily trips by bus, trolley, subway, train, and paratransit. SEPTA ridership is growing as more and more of our citizens seek alternate ways to move around through and to our city rather than driving alone. Without SEPTA, access to commerce, education, healthcare, and entertainment, the quality of life in Philadelphia would be seriously diminished. In my role as Deputy Managing Director for Transportation Infrastructure, I will strive to ensure that our streets and sidewalks, roads, and bridges will safely, efficiently, and completely accommodate all the way we wish to travel, that we wish to move, whether it's to work or to recreate, to shop or to learn, by foot, bike, car, or bus. In a densely populated city, we know that reliable transit plays a pivotal role in reducing congestion, limiting air pollution, promoting economic vitality, and encouraging choices on how we move around. As already stated, nearly 80% of SEPTA's trips are taken by Philadelphia residents. But we also know the city derives benefits from SEPTA beyond the mobility of our residents. Each day, SEPTA delivers thousands of regional commuters to the city, resulting in wage and business taxes critical to the financial health of our city. With new leadership of our city under Mayor Kinney and at SEPTA with General Manager Jeff Kneppel, I look forward to a new partnership with SEPTA focused on creating a world-class transit system with stable funding, excellent customer service, planning for the future and economic opportunities to provide mobility, access, and jobs to our citizens. I ask for your support for my nomination and look forward to working with you. Thank you for your consideration.
Good day, President Clark and members of City Council. My name is Falashade Olani Pekun Lewis. Thank you for the invitation to appear before you to provide testimony on Resolution 160038 relating to the Philadelphia Water Board. I am pleased and honored that Mayor Kinney has nominated me to serve on the Philadelphia Water Board, and I thank City Council for consideration of my nomination. My career in city government began in 1994 when I was hired by then City Treasurer Clay Armbruster in the role of Public Financial Specialist. It was during my early years with the City of Philadelphia I learned about city finances, more specifically debt finance and how the city pays for the cost of maintaining and improving its infrastructure. In my education, I learned about all of the city's enterprise funds, including the water system, and came to understand, among other things, the importance of balancing the need to establish rates such that they are reasonable and fair, but sufficient to maintain and improve a physical infrastructure that provides a very important service to the 1.6 million residents and regional customers that use the system daily. During my over 20 years working in city government, 16 of them have been in the area of public finance. During that time, I directed or have been instrumental in the execution of multiple financial transactions of about $5 billion, including new money issuances, refinancings, and other related financing activities. Many of these transactions involved enterprise funds, such as the Water Department. In addition, during my tenure as City Treasurer, I oversaw the management and investment of cash reserves of the city and its segregated funds, such as the Water Fund and the Aviation Fund, totaling over $2 billion. Since joining the city in 1994, I had the opportunity to further my knowledge base about public finance by serving as the Director of Finance for the Philadelphia Parking Authority, City Treasurer for this great city, Director of Finance for the City of Birmingham, Alabama, Chief Financial Officer for the School District of Philadelphia, and most recently, Chief Financial Officer for this legislative body, which I am presenting in front of today. I currently serve in a very new role as Chief Administrative Officer for the Philadelphia International Airport. In terms of my educational background, I completed secondary school in Nigeria, West Africa, obtained an undergraduate degree in economics from the Graduate Center, City University of New York, a Juris Doctor degree from Temple University, Beasley School of Law, and a master's degree in government administration from the University of Pennsylvania Fells Institute of Government. In addition to earning a degree from Fells Institute, I am currently an adjunct instructor where I teach 2 classes, an introductory budget class and a class that looks at critical fiscal issues plaguing local government today. While not a native of Philadelphia, having lived here over 20 years, I've come to call the city my home. I welcome the opportunity to continue my role as a public servant by serving on this board, and thank you for your consideration. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Christmas just reminded me, Ms. Coleman, that you're a reappointment, so I would anticipate that you'll get us the response much quicker, right? All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. Good afternoon, everyone. And first, Folasade Olan Ipekun Lewis, let me just congratulate you, and I certainly have no questions for you because you know, I'm very familiar with your work, and you're taking on a new role, but in a new place, but pretty much the same role. And so thank you so very much for your service. I look forward to working with you,
Thank you, sir.
as we move forward. And I do know the commissioner, now deputy mayor, and certainly your great reputation and the great work you've done. And Beverly Coleman, I don't know you as well, but I do have questions, not about your backgrounds or your qualifications, but just in your new or returning role with SEPTA. So there are 17 members, as I understand it, on the board of SEPTA, and Philadelphia gets 2 representatives, and you are the 2. And may I ask, do you have any hesitations based on your current positions? Do you see any conflicts with being adverse to your fellow SEPTA members when it is necessary to fight for Philadelphia?
No, sir, I don't. I think because Philadelphia only has 2 members on the board, I think it's important to be able to exercise an informal influence on the board. It would be fabulous from the perspective of the city if the membership composition would change, but I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. So I think that we have to work to build relationships with the individual members and work to exert informal influence.
The city provides annually about $62 to $64 million to SEPTA. Has there ever been a time where you felt it important to leverage that contribution or to inform the city council if there were any issues that arose?
I didn't, in my last term, I didn't look to inform the city council about any issues. I think one of the things that has occurred in the last 7 to 8 years is that SEPTA and the city have been able to develop a very close working relationship. It's not that there's always agreement about everything, but there's a continual dialogue. And I think that that's made a difference and has helped the city to actually be able to gain more from SEPTA than before that relationship existed.
In terms of an issue that was dealt with in this city council, we did a resolution, I introduced a resolution, and that was to encourage SEPTA to implement a local hiring preference in its RFPs as permitted by the Federal Transportation Administration and the Federal Highway Administration. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of the letter. I also am aware that staff at SEPTA is in the process of responding to that. I know that there's an interest on the part of SEPTA of looking at the feasibility. The staff is currently looking at the feasibility of having a pilot. I think there are certain requirements that that SEPTA may or may not meet, and so that review is going on right now.
And I understand that it is not certainly our place to try to influence the outcome of the, well, maybe it is my place to try to influence the outcome, but, you know, SEPTA has its own, you know, parameters, and they stick with it, and they need robust competition and all that type of thing. So, you know, we simply have, you know, sought to see if it would be appropriate for SEPTA to include the local hiring preference in their RFPs. But what is your personal feelings about including a local hiring preference that would advantage Philadelphia?
I'd like to see rules in terms of SEPTA is required to, by the federal government, have a competitive bid process. I would like to see the opportunity for the city to have, and businesses in the city to have an opportunity, a very good opportunity to compete. And if it was feasible to have a local preference, I would support that.
All right, thank you very much. And Deputy Manager, your thoughts?
I look forward to the opportunity to work with SEPTA, certainly to advocate on behalf of the city, which has been my home since birth. I believe very strongly in support for all of our citizens to meet their needs, whether those citizens be riders or business people, elected officials. So I look forward to the opportunity to work together with SEPTA to address those issues.
All right, thank you very much. I would just like to add that we were all very supportive of Joe Casey, outstanding general manager, and Jeff Knuppel has got tremendous credibility, I think, at least with me, and I think with most people in council. So we look forward to SEPTA continuing its leadership, but there are some issues, I think, that are rising that are important to, at least to me as a representative of the city of Philadelphia, and I would expect for everyone who cares about employment and commerce and trade in our city. So thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones. No, you know what, if I do this, you're going to say I only did this because of you. I'm going to wait till after. We're getting ready to do the clock.
Oh, now you got.
But I was trying to, after Councilman Jones speaks.
So just so you know, freshman, that is directed at me, but I just want.
It's absolutely not, absolutely not.
That's okay. I hope to not need to ring.
Absolutely, Councilman.
So, first let me say that, Velocity, I'm gonna miss you, because from time to time I got to sit up there, and now it's public, though, I used to copy your questions and sound brilliant sitting over there, asking your questions on your behalf. So thank you for that, and I'm gonna miss you. But I know you will do a good job there. Clarina, Deputy Mayor Tolson, welcome back to Transportation and Streets. You couldn't have come at a better time. We had the fourth worst snowstorm in the world. It was good to have you in that capacity, working with the administration to keep our streets safe, and I appreciate that. Ms. Coleman, I want to publicly and kind of chime in on my colleague's point of how you interact with council. It is excellent. Sometimes we have difficult situations such as bus routes, and we have constituents that come in because they have, just like we do, the right to public comment. And over and over and over and over again, you have to hear those things, and you do it in a patient manner and work with elected officials, particularly district people, to resolve some of those things. So that interaction, I truly appreciate your patience and your insight for. So I want to be on the record saying that SEPTA has a good working relationship, at least with my district, and it's probably true for some other council folks as well. So thank you for that. And you didn't have to ring the bell.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Am I on the bell too?
Yes, sir.
I'm starting to think maybe my last name now, that's why I'm on the bell.
Let me quickly explain for some of the new members, although I don't necessarily count you as a new member. You've been around. Now, if you were the other one, no, let me stop before I get myself in trouble. To the newer members, when we have committees of the whole, and you'll see it during budget, is that we do the clock. So we normally start with 5 minutes, and so you'll have time to come back, because we have had and probably still do have members that, frankly speaking, if given a half an hour, they'll take a half an hour. So what we want to do is make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask questions while they're still fresh in their mind, as opposed to, So with that, sir, Councilman Green.
And the clock is starting now?
Right now. Right.
Thank you, Council President. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to ask just a few quick questions, but also thank the members of the panel for their service. Sade, I've worked with you over the years, and thank you for your insight and intelligence and creativity in helping us to really deal with the major issues we have here in the city of Philadelphia. From our working experience, spending a lot of time in room 491 on the PGW matter, I think you will probably be well positioned to be in a regulatory capacity on the water board. To Deputy Mayor Tolson and Ms. Coleman, thank you for your service on SEPTA. For Ms. Coleman, your reappointment to SEPTA, and Deputy Mayor Tolson for your years of experience serving as Streets Commissioner. Ms. Coleman, you talked about economic development, and I know Mayor Kenny has a strong focus on economic development from commercial corridors, and I just want to raise this issue in reference to SEPTA, and hopefully going forward be a little bit better partner in reference to economic development. In particular, I can recall there was a long-term bookstore in Mount Airy, East Mount Airy, where I was the president of East Mount Airy Neighbors for a number of years. Walk a Crooked Mile Books, the gentleman that was running the bookstore for a number of years wanted to kind of get out of the business. There were two people coming into the community that wanted to take over the business, but SEPTA really gave them a hard time in trying to take over the lease. As a result, that long-term bookstore at the Mount Airy train station became vacant, and those two entrepreneurs then went to Germantown Avenue to open a new bookstore on Mount Airy, Read and Eat. And that's not the first time I've heard about those issues and concerns of entrepreneurs having challenges working with SEPTA to really reinvest in some of our very aging infrastructure and train station and try to create a business opportunity. So when I heard your comments and read your testimony about economic development and working with the city, hopefully going in with the new administration with your reappointment and also Deputy Mayor Tolson's appointment to the SEPTA board, we'll have that perspective going forward of better cooperation between SEPTA and also the community groups like Community Development Corporation and others who are trying to provide economic development opportunities in the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President, and good afternoon. And I'm going to say congratulations prior to the vote, but this is a very special day for you, and I think we're proud that all three of you have been, put up as nominations and in front of us for the respective boards. Sade, I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiment here today. We will miss you, and we did rely on your, I'm going to say, unofficial treasurer of the city of Philadelphia for city council is how we saw you. So you will be missing, and I'll tell you, you're entering into a new role, with the airport. I think that has a lot of positive and great economic development opportunities, not just for the city, but for the region. So I wish you luck, and I'm sure it's going to be exciting times for you. And Beverly and Ms. Tolson, I think the city is going to be proud to have you as representatives on the SEPTA board. This isn't, I'm not going to put this as as our normal budget process in hearings where we grill down on a lot of questions, all right, but this is an opportunity to transmit to you, all right, what City Council was thinking and what's important to us while you are doing your duties and responsibilities as a board member of SEPTA. All right, so we expect that SEPTA reflect what the city looks like, and we expect that in its diverse finances and economic development that EOC plans are in place in the city of Philadelphia. One of the things I wanted to mention to you is, I don't know if it was last year or to both of you, is last year, or I think it was the beginning of last year, the transportation bill, all right, the Pennsylvania State Transportation Bill that, put more funds into our transportation system. I believe SEPTA will be receiving from that legislation $5 billion over the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. So when Council President Clark had talked about Philadelphia being the synergy and the engine and the economic driver, so to speak, of ridership and part of SEPTA's makeup here, we would hope that you could find out in the course of your duties and responsibility how they're spending that $5 billion over the next 10 years, back in the city of Philadelphia, and how diverse and economic benefits the city will have as a part of that. I mean, it was a big deal. It was historic. We didn't talk about it much here in the city, but we are going to be a huge beneficiary from our riderships, from the new systems that are going to be in place, the card swipes, the developing of our stations, mm-hmm. and also some of our infrastructure here in the city of Philadelphia. So if you can be a champion of making sure that money is equally distributed to the city of Philadelphia, we would appreciate it. So good luck, and look forward to keeping an eye on the SEPTA board minutes and anything that we could do to be helpful to you in advance of those meetings. I'm sure every member would welcome the opportunity. So good luck to you, and it'll be my pleasure to vote for you guys moving forward in these roles. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman.
I join the chorus of council members wishing you well and saying that you earned the right to have this opportunity. No one gave it to you, and that needs to be recognized given your track record, your credentials, and your work ethic. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Acknowledging President Clark's observation that it's early in terms of your duties and involvement there, I just want to put a couple of things on your radar screen, because at some juncture in the future, you'll be asked about it. Councilman Green has already spoken to the economic employment around transit, and we'll be paying attention to what that means and what that looks like with you all being on the board now. I would ask that you pay attention to two things. One is, how well are we doing with regards to services to seniors, particularly around paratransit? What challenges does paratransit still face, and they do face challenges, and what you all hope to do to make it different and better for seniors who every day rely on paratransit to take care of their daily needs. And then secondly, not knowing the answer to this question, I'll ask it. Does SEPTA provide subsidy for children, young people to ride SEPTA? I don't know the answer. Point of information. Councilman Good would say that's a point of information. Do you know the answer to that?
School program. There is the school program.
Sorry?
There is the school program that provides transit to school-age children. Tokens.
So there is a subsidy?
Yes.
Okay. All right then. Well, we'll look to hear the scale of that, and is there room for improvement or not as it relates to services of that type for young people that ride SEPTA. So those are the principal the two items I want to get on your radar screen. How well are we doing in serving seniors, and what the current picture looks like for subsidy for school-age children at SEPTA. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's a thrill to see that at least government is getting it right when it comes to putting women and women of color in positions of leadership and responsibility on boards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you. I echo that. It's beautiful to see three women of color assuming the roles in very important organizations, corporations that have to do with the infrastructure of the city of Philadelphia. So I too want to congratulate all of you. As it relates to Ms. Coleman and Tolson, piggybacking on what Councilman Green has talked about economic development, Council President Clark and I represent 10 LSTOPs together. And when we talk about opportunities, many of those LSTOPs are lifelines for folks in connecting to jobs and commerce all over the city, but they also present business opportunities along the corridor. And I know one of our challenges has been safety, and Chief Nestle has been wonderful in that, but I want to bring that to your attention so that as you assume this role, that you look at what other things SEPTA could be doing. I know we're working on there about a potential supermarket at the end of the Frankfurt line, but those are opportunities that need to be leveraged, and we need to make sure that SEPTA is very deliberate how it uses its transportation money for that. So I look forward to working on that project with you, on that supermarket project with you in Frankfurt, but also around safety and access pathways to those LSTOPs that we represent. So I want to thank you. I want to ask one question to Sade. We hate to see her leave. She is our financial guru over here. But wanted to ask you, Council last year unanimously supported a water affordability bill. And as a rate board member, I wanted to ask you, do you support that? And do you support that?
Councilwoman, I support any initiatives to the extent that it doesn't impact the ability for the system to be maintained and functional. Mm-hmm. So clearly we'll look at that in the context of any rate setting. But wearing my treasurer's hat, primarily when we receive revenue for the system, it has to maintain the system in the first instance, and then everything flows. That's sort of where my head is. But I don't, there are a number of, we have programs in place. This one's a new one that have been able to be integrated in such a way that it preserves the system. So I suspect that will happen as well.
Yeah, and that's why your financial background becomes so very important. Unfortunately, our current water rate affordability program has a very low participation rate, and we're hopeful that this new one, as we write out the regulations, the administration has hired a national consultant, and we have best practices, and I look forward to you drilling down on those numbers.
Absolutely, Councilwoman.
As part of your role there, if sharing the value that water, for some of us, believe that is a right that people should have, and when you look at what's going on around the country nationally,
Absolutely.
I'm happy that Philadelphia is leading the charge. Detroit and other cities using our legislation to really look at ways that they could help the working poor afford to stay in their homes. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with you on that.
Same here, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to take a moment to congratulate. This is really my first time having a chance to interact with Ms. Beverly Coleman, but I do commend you for your soon-to-be reappointment to the SEPTA Board. I'm Chairman of Transportation and Public Utilities. In that capacity, I've had the opportunity to work very closely with the former CEO, Joe Casey, as well as my good friend and big sister, Frances Jones, and now continue to do work with Fran Kelly moving forward, and always recognizing that SEPTA is last year was hailed the #1 transportation company, not in the city of Philadelphia, not in the state of Pennsylvania, but in these United States. And so for me, as a pro-infrastructure elected official, that's something to be proud of, because oftentimes when we talk about what's not working, we don't really, we kind of take for granted all the things that we do have. And I remember being a part of the city of Philadelphia, which is also supported by SEPTA, and we did an event down in Cleveland. We were in an area called the Flats. And I noticed that once we missed one bus, the next bus was like 2-3 hours later. So we didn't have the ability to go from one block and 2 blocks over with the ability to actually have access to public transportation. So I think that's a great thing. And so I commend you for your soon-to-be reappointment. Clarina as well, one of my favorite people in city government, support you as well as your promotion as deputy manager, and also my good friend Sade. I just want to commend you as well for your appointment to the Water Rate Board. And so congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much. Just want to state that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations on your, I assume you'll be voted in, and congratulations to all three of you. But I wanted to mention something about SEPTA. And the Uber application has become one of the best apps on the market, and it's caused UberX to be unbelievably successful, especially with millennials, who we have high regards in the city, and a large population of millennials. If we could develop a SEPTA app that duplicated the Uber app, it would be a phenomenal source for young people and even older people like myself to use, because I could tell by looking at my phone what bus is coming down, where it's going, what time it's coming, and I can pay for it. It would be a phenomenal goal to set for us, and we could, I don't think any part of the country uses this type of application in transportation like this, but it should be a way to do it. So I'm just giving you that challenge to try to get us there.
So, Councilman, actually SEPTA is in the process of they expect to pilot later this year a system that would provide for real-time information. So hopefully in the next year we will actually have something that
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Work.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, ladies. So kudos to Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown for taking the lead and discussing what the power of estrogen can do when it has the opportunity to be at the table. And as I think about sort of each of your respective qualifications and the breadth and depth of your experience, aside from the fact that you bring some much needed value aside from your sex by being women of color, to reinforce your qualifications and the depth and breadth of your experience is extremely important, so that it's clear that you are the appointees because of your brain power. And that's just always very important to get on the record. It was mentioned earlier about Act 89 of 2013, the $2.3 billion transportation funding package that was passed through the Pennsylvania General Assembly and signed into law. I am honored to have been a strong advocate for its passage and work very closely with then Casey and all of the members of the SEPTA team while we were going through that process. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that Philadelphia is very fortunate right now to have two Philadelphians, particularly in the Pennsylvania House, on both sides of the aisle, chairing the transportation committees, and the senior Republican from Philadelphia, Representative John Taylor, who is here, along with Representative Bill Keller. So as we, too, particularly for Clarina and Bev, as you are there echoing the sentiments regarding the value of mass transit and its impact on neighborhood economic development, not simply from the perspective of job creation, but for neighborhood stabilization. You know, usually we try to think about an anchor business, right, to help jumpstart an economy in an area that may have seen some decline. But we have seen instances like at Cheltenham and Ogons Avenue, when I'm driving through Ridge Avenue in Council President Clark's district to see Strawberry Mansion, and the revitalization of those depots become a tool to create investment in the surrounding community. So I wanted to ask you to continue to, Bev, continue to advocate for using it as a tool to leverage other investment in neighborhoods aside from job creation, and you, Ms. Tolson, to also do the same. And from Sade, as it relates to the water board, to just say, make sure that we keep consumer protection in mind. Sometimes when we're making, these decisions from a policy perspective, it seems pretty corny, right, to talk about the consumer advocacy perspective, but we need someone who never loses sight of that fact when they are at the table. And if from the SEPTA perspective, if you all have any comments about economic development as a tool to leverage private investment in the area, I would greatly be interested in hearing your response to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, like you, I agree that it's incredibly important. I have focused more in my career on the link between transit and housing development. But I think that in terms of neighborhood revitalization and economic development from a business perspective, having transit stops that are attractive is hugely important. And I will certainly, if I continue, advocate for SEPTA playing a very important role in that and understanding its role with respect to revitalization of neighborhoods, especially in low-income neighborhoods in Philadelphia.
Councilman, notwithstanding my financial background, I fully appreciate, given the demographics of our city, that, as I said in my testimony, there's a balance between having established rates that are sufficient to maintain the system, but also recognizing that the rate should be affordable to our citizens. So I'll be bringing those sensibilities to this experience should you approve my nomination.
And I, too, Councilwoman, look forward to addressing the issues that you've raised.
Good. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gimm.
Thank you very much, Council President. I'd like to join my voices with my fellow council members, the female side, to celebrate your ascendance and just say how much it means to have 3 strong women of color standing up for our city, being role models, I'm sure, within your own families, but also for the broader public. So thank you for that. I'm the chair of the Children and Youth Committee, and this is particularly for Deputy Mayor Tolson and Commissioner Coleman, that, you know, one of the situations that we've been dealing with increasingly is safety issues with our children traveling on SEPTA, going back and forth at home, and the urgent need for us to be proactive and thoughtful as we address responsible plans for the safety of our young people. The School District of Philadelphia is responsible for the transportation of young people and guarantees their safety from the moment they leave their house to the moment they step back in through their doors. So that makes it incumbent upon all of us within the city to be a partner with them in planning. There was a horrible tragedy at the Olney stop. My son takes that stop every day. So as a mother, you know, as a fellow council member, I would love to be able to work with you, and I'm sure my fellow council member, Blondell Reynolds Brown, and Councilwoman Janie Blackwell, as part of Education Committee, would be interested in maybe talking with you a little bit more about how we can partner and ensure that this is something that we take a look at very seriously. I think there are only 2 voices that Philadelphia has, but I know that you 2 can be very strong ones for our city, and the clearer you are about our need, the stronger I know that your voice can be to be an advocate for us, but in particular for young people. Would love to be able to sit down and talk a little bit more extensively about how to ensure their safety back and forth from school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You good? Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. I'd just like to take time to recognize our good friend and State Representative, my good friend Taylor. I emphasize good friend because sometimes it gets lonely in Harrisburg, those long trips. And our savior, Rep, thank you for being down. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Tottenberger.
Council President, thank you very much. Ladies, congratulations on your nominations. And the questions that have been asked and answered, I am very impressed, and I am very honored to lend my support for your nominations, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you very much. I would certainly agree with all those comments that have been made about women and about African American and African women. And I only have one thing that I'd like to say, and that is if Sade Olani Pinkham, I wish not only was she dealing with water rates, that she were dealing with the way the company operates, and maybe I wouldn't have so many problems for my pipes that broke on 52nd Street. But at any rate, as all of you know, I call everybody for anything, and we're looking forward to a wonderful relationship with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Yeah, when Councilman Brown was talking, I was struck by the fact of the strong presence of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on the floor between Councilman Brown, Councilman Parker, Deputy Mayor Tolson, but also made me reflect on another member of that great sorority, Frances Jones, who has since recently retired from SEPTA, and she provided an opportunity for the newer members of council to visit and tour SEPTA. But it also made me reflect on some of the information she provided regarding diversity in reference to their supply diversity and also workforce diversity. But it raised a question in my mind that I'll revisit during the budget process, the diversity and executive leadership at SEPTA. And would like to get some information in that regard going forward, especially as we get into the budget process. So I just want to give you that information for Deputy Mayor Tolson, Ms. Coleman, about what steps SEPTA is taking in order to provide opportunities for diversity in executive leadership at SEPTA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. There does not appear to be any additional questions other than Councilman Jones.
So since we're doing our wish list for budget, I want to thank SEPTA always for stepping up when it comes to our bridges. We had a number of issues with overpasses, and some of them weren't even directly your responsibility. Some of them, however, were deemed imminently dangerous. We've had hearings to that effect, some of them dealing with CSX and others. We are going to take a strong look at that, and some of those bridges are over 100 years old and constitute a threat in our neighborhoods. So I'm going to ask that you take a look at that. And in the past, we've always not wanted to poke the eye of the bear of some of the bigger institutions nationally. But we're at a point where we have nothing to lose. I mean, they're not fixing it. And so we're going to kind of call for you to be a little more aggressive by way of getting them to pay particular attention to their repair or their state of disrepair. Okay, I got my wish list.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. It appears to conclude the questions for these members. I do want to ask one question that relates to the SEPTA board members. We have had in council the luxury of having a great general manager over the last several years. He's moved on. We had Francis Jones for a long time. They've moved on. So to the board members, I would like for you to emphasize to the new people in those particular positions, I'm not sure who's replacing Francis yet, to give the same level of service to the council that they have in terms of their responsiveness and their willingness to talk about issues in a way that's respectful and meaningful, and trying to focus on solutions. That is very important to us. Frankly speaking, it's better when we don't have to talk to board members, because we know that the staff does what they're supposed to do in terms of service delivery. So I would like to emphasize to you that those new individuals taking those positions really, hopefully, will continue that level of service to us. Okay. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council
Say,
President.
Ms. Lewis, you wanted to testify? You know I'm not going to ask you any questions. You're too close to me. I'm still getting over you not being here anymore. So
It's very odd, but
all right, it's okay.
thank you, Council
It's
President.
okay.
It's an honor.
We have a little separation of anxiety. It's all good. Thank you, ladies, so much for your testimony. Look forward to your service. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Councilman O'Neill. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. President, I'll be very brief. First, I'd like to thank our new mayor, former colleague, Jim Kenney, for appointing such high-level people that make this such an easy hearing. And the other is that I'm very familiar, and many people in council are, with Francis Jones' boss, Fran Kelly, who matches exactly what you were talking about in terms of responsiveness and sensitivity
Absolutely.
to our needs. And I think we're in good shape there with whoever replaces Francis.
Yeah, no, he's still here, so we know what we're going to get from him. I'm just concerned.
Hopefully, he'll be making some part of that decision, see who
concur.
comes in to replace Francis. But
I concur.
thanks for mentioning it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Council.
Sorry, Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge, I'm following protocol. My good friend over there from the State House, here to participate in the hearing. Representative John
You want to
Taylor.
acknowledge him?
I was just saying hello to him. I know that's usually...
No, I did already.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, John.
Yeah.
So
no,
much for paying attention, right, Council President?
It's okay.
I'm human.
There can never be enough acknowledgement as it relates to our friends in Harrisburg. Thank you. Our next witness will be Sozi Pedro Tulante. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Council President. Good afternoon, Council President, members of the Committee of the Whole. I'm Sozi Pedro Tulante. I'm the Acting City Solicitor for the City of Philadelphia. And I want to open by thanking each of you for giving me the extraordinary honor to appear here before you today. This past December, I had the opportunity to sit down with many of you, and since then, have had the privilege of working with you and your staff in my current role. In fact, it's been exactly a month since I started. I'm a political refugee. My family came to Philadelphia from Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, when I was 8 years old. We eventually settled in Hunting Park in Olney. While my father spent days and nights driving a cab, he entrusted me to the public schools of the city. It was in the classrooms of those schools, including Mary McLeod Bethune and Russell Conwell Middle Magnet, where I was educated and learned to speak English. I later graduated from Northeast High School, and I'm proud to call myself today a Viking. I received my bachelor's degree in Afro-American Studies from Harvard College. At Harvard, I focused my studies on the history of the Civil Rights Movement and was inspired to pursue a legal education, which I completed at Harvard Law School. After law school, I was a commercial litigator at a firm in Boston. I then clerked for 1 year for the late Reginald C. Lindsay, who at the time was the only African-American federal district court judge in Massachusetts. Following my clerkship, I returned to Philadelphia, where my entire family still lives, and continued my work in civil litigation at Hangley, Aronchick, Siegel, Pudlin, and Schiller, and was elected partner there. I worked alongside two former city solicitors, Joe Duretsky and Mark Aronchick at Hangley, and through them, first grasped the vital role that the law department has in our municipal government. I became more familiar with the department by serving on its transition committee for former Mayor Nutter. For the last 5 years, I was an assistant United States attorney in the criminal division of the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Philadelphia, representing the United States in various cases, mostly serious drug investigations and prosecutions. I look forward to serving you, the mayor, and the many operating departments of the city of Philadelphia. And today I want to briefly identify 3 of the goals that I have for the department. First and foremost, I want to ensure that the department is client-centered. And by that I mean, I want the excellent lawyers in the department to offer our clients the highest quality legal service that we possibly can. And consistent with that pledge, I intend to maintain a close attorney-client relationship with all members of City Council. It is why I spent 3 days meeting or speaking with each of you before my appointment was publicly announced. I reaffirm now what I said then. You will have independent access to me and my attorneys to further the work that you were elected to pursue. As clients and independently elected officials, I know that you do not expect anything less. And as I assured you, I acknowledge my duty to give you the loyalty and confidentiality to which you're entitled under the Home Rule Charter and the Pennsylvania Rules of Professional Conduct. This means that if you ask for confidential advice, I commit to keeping your inquiry confidential. In short, I promise that my staff and I will treat your inquiries seriously and with respect. Second, I want to focus on diversity. Diversity is personally meaningful to me and is something for which I will hold myself personally accountable. To be blunt, the department can and must do a better job of achieving a more diverse workforce. I'm already assessing ways to expand the pool of qualified, diverse candidates interested in a career in my department. For instance, I have personally reached out to the Barristers Association of Philadelphia, the Hispanic Bar Association, and other affinity bar associations to encourage them to refer candidates to the law department. During this outreach, I learned that many members of these organizations did not even know about the vacancies that we have in the department. So for the first time, we are sending out all our attorney vacancies to the mailing list of these organizations and inviting applications. These efforts have already generated interest from candidates who would otherwise not have applied to the department. I am also leveraging my personal relationships with law firms and public interest organizations to encourage diverse candidates for the department. In addition, Lorna Atkinson, the city's first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and I are discussing ways to promote diversity in the department. I'm also scrutinizing our outside counsel work to try to increase the number of diverse attorneys who handle that work. Finally, I want to place special emphasis on affirmative litigation by the law department. Though the department is blessed with many exceptional litigators, they are largely dedicated to defending the city and its operating departments. Going forward, I seek to realign staff in the department to pursue litigation that will benefit the city and our taxpayers. In the last decade, the most highly regarded municipal law departments across the country have embraced affirmative cases as a way to generate additional revenue and to attack intractable problems in a breathtaking range of cases. My staff and I have spoken to lawyers from many of these departments, as well as lawyers from firms that routinely represent municipalities and from public interest organizations, all in an attempt to explore the opportunities in this area. While our efforts are in their infancy, the fundamental point is that we are developing a coherent framework to facilitate the transition from a wholly defensive mindset, which is what we have now, towards a more proactive litigation approach. In the end, there is no greater honor for me than to serve the city of Philadelphia. Every day I am grateful that this city and its citizens not only offered my family and me a refuge from persecution, but also molded me to be the person I am today. I look forward to working with and for each of you. I am happy to answer any questions you may have concerning my background and my candidacy for City Solicitor of Philadelphia.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. And,
Good afternoon, Councilwoman.
Thank you for your testimony of candidacy for consideration by this body. Welcome to these quarters.
It's great to be here.
And let me echo 2 points that you've already made, which are consistent or parallel my interests. Diversity is at the top of the column, and already I hear an unorthodox way of how you're going to approach finding qualified, diverse candidates for the law department. So to hear that is encouraging to know that you have to change the paradigm, if you will, in finding candidates who will work for the law department. What continues to, I continue to be curious about, and what I'll ask you to speak more about during budget hearings, is how your department will drill down and look at how outside law firms, how well they're doing with regards to giving not only outside law firms business, but who are they giving those opportunities to within those law firms with regards to women, lawyers, and people of color? You follow me?
Yes, I do. In fact, when we have an RFP for outside counsel work, there's a range that OEO sets.
There is a what?
There's a range of MBE and WBE participation. And one of the things that I'm interested in is to examine law firms that are repeatedly falling, they're not meeting that range. And there may be reasons, I'm sure there are reasons, but I want to actually identify our top outside counsel firms and speak to them and identify why aren't you giving young minority attorneys the opportunity to work on these cases. Sometimes, I mean, this is public money, mind you, nobody disputes that. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to emphasize, both in my testimony, my written testimony and my testimony here today, is that I will put myself out there. And by that I mean, one of the ways you can increase diversity is for people to know that you're working at it. So whether it's you go to the Martin Luther King breakfast and you greet people, you solicit resumes, or you go speak to the barristers, which I'm doing last week, or the Hispanic Bar Association, people recognize that this is something that you don't just,
important.
You know, it's important, but also that you're willing to put yourself out there for that. And that's why I identify that as a goal of mine.
Lastly, I appreciate very much your willingness to meet with us on the front end prior to budget hearings and to hear from us one-on-one, up close and personal, what matters to us as individual council members. Thank you for your work effort. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sozi, second time we've met.
Yes.
I appreciated our meeting in December. My questions were answered and answered well, but you had me on, if it was 7th or 9th in Erie? What?
9th in Erie.
9th in Erie and 3 buses to Northeast High for 4 years. You had me there. That tells me all I have to know about your character and where you came from and how hard you had to work to get where you are, and that's very, very important as far as I'm concerned. The second thing is, I've noticed just with the announcement that you would become city solicitor, a change in some people I've dealt with in your office without me having to do anything. I think they got that what you were talking about in terms of a different approach, trying to find out ways of doing things rather than not doing things, treating council members and their constituents that they're representing with the kind of representation that we deserve and our constituents deserve indirectly. I've seen it, there's no accident I can believe has caused it. It's just that the old way of doing it is gone, and there's a new way of doing things when it comes to city council members, and I appreciate that. I won't mention names. I'm just happy to see it, and I think the change is real, and it may be through a lot of different reasons. I just don't believe in coincidences that happen that quickly. So you made it easy for me to say yes and say it emphatically in council approving your nomination. And good luck, and look forward to your time in the solicitor's office, which hopefully will be a lengthy one.
Thank you, Councilman. And on the issue of staff, I want to acknowledge that there are quite a number of people from my office here. I think in the month that I've been in the law department, I've been very impressed with just how hardworking people are. I think I've told members of my staff, I got 3 young kids, don't email me at 11:45, it wakes them up, but that people are working hard to fulfill the mission.
Yeah, I think the direction they get is the most important thing. You've got talent. It's what they see coming from the top person, and I can see that that's already been going on.
Thank you.
And that makes a big difference in our lives. And again, we'll see you at budget, but
yes, we're already working on that.
That is a real good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you very much. We certainly are happy for this day. We're glad that there, as Blondie just said, a new sheriff in town and a new way of doing things. To have a solicitor who won't decide they don't like what you said, so you and your office suffer for year in and year out. And excuse me for being that blunt, but you suffer long enough, it just comes out. But we want to thank you for your support. He's attended and been involved with the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs, as well as Echoes of Africa. And these groups are very encouraged and have a lot of problems, but very happy to have you where you are. And again, I'm particularly overjoyed that we feel council will have representation, equal representation, and certainly that you don't come to council and, say issues to us about our issues and make public speeches about it. But again, thank you. Look forward to working with you, and glad we have somebody from my neighborhood, too.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you,
Blackwell.
Susie.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. Sozy, we've known each other for a long time, since before you became a partner at Hangley from our Center for Aggressive Leadership days. And I remember I was struck when you left Hangley to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was surprised and also not surprised because of your dedication to public service and the public sector, and then learning of your interest in becoming a city solicitor. And I commend you for some of the initiatives you've already taken as a new, soon-to-be new city solicitor as we finish through today's activities, but also on your commitment for diversity. And we've already had some conversation and meeting with Nolan Atkinson, and also in reference to affirmative litigation and what has already been spoken about already, the relationships that will increase and be enhanced between the executive and legislative branch in your role as city solicitor. But also, I want to commend you for the reports I've been hearing from people in the law department. I'm a former member of the City Solicitor's Office, and I think it's a great organization and institution with people that really work very hard for the citizens of our city and don't always get the accolades. But I've heard you've been in courtrooms, and I've even saw you walking with some divisional deputies and assistant city solicitors around City Hall going to and fro, and I think that really makes a difference when you have someone who is the chief legal officer for a department to really spend the time and see what the work that deputy city solicitors, assistant city solicitors, divisional deputies, and what they do. And you taking that interest in being engaged to really get a reflection of the work they're doing, I think really speaks volumes of your character and the way you'll lead the office. And so I really look forward to working with you and all the members of the law department and continuing the work that they do for the citizens of our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Green.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. And I also want to welcome you, Sozi, as well. I think it'll be wonderful to have you there. We had a great conversation, I thought. I'm especially encouraged by your support for affirmative litigation, which I think was a really lost opportunity from a long time for a while. And toward that end, certainly hope that you'll support enforcement around Pennsylvania's consumer protection laws in particular. I think that there's a lot that needs to happen we have a decent state law, but we do need enforcement. We need protection for our consumers, and we need to shut down abusive businesses. I also love your commitment to diversity as well, and as you work to diversify within the office, I hope you'll think about how to also diversify even broader. And in particular, HUD regulations require us to follow the Fair Housing Act, and that there are new regulations that are coming forward which allow us to have a good opportunity to think through about how we can, the HUD block grants are contingent upon this, and it's a new opportunity for us to think through how to diversify and make sure that the Fair Housing Act is being responsibly and broadly applied throughout the city. And just as somebody who has been really active around city stuff with transparency, certainly hope that we'll have a strong commitment to the open records law and all of that. But we've already taken advantage of your wonderful city solicitor's office. We've had some really great opportunities to work with the city solicitors there and appreciate, and we'll really look forward to all the new things you'll bring to it. So thank you.
Thank you. And then I wanted to talk about you mentioned the consumer protection laws. Just to explain what we're doing in affirmative litigation is that we're talking to city solicitors across the country, people who have essentially been at the vanguard of doing this affirmative litigation. And then we're also examining the applicable laws here in Pennsylvania to sort of go as far as we can. Because for too long, the city, as attorneys, you get sued and you sort of sit there and you have to defend the city. But we're trying to really think about ways to be proactive so that, people know that if you're going to be engaged in deceptive practices, predatory lending and things of that nature, that we're going to be exploring it. And so we're in budget discussions now about how to make that work, but it's something we take seriously.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you for your choice and thank you for your availability to serve our city. You bring a whole fresh perspective to this that is just a tremendous reflection on Mayor Kenny. I think, your nomination, your acceptance speaks very well of his administration. And I would say the things that you are saying are difficult to do, but you are the most convincing person. I believe you'll be able to do everything that you have just articulated.
Well, not quite that.
Well, listen,
I will certainly try.
I have full confidence in you, and I wish you the best, and anything we could do to support you, we certainly will. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman O.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to take a moment and also commend Sochi on being nominated and just remembering watching you go throughout this path, meeting you in the capacity of me being a state representative. But even in this position, in this capacity, one, congratulating you, but also lending a level of support, because I think in this particular position, the balancing act is that although you're appointed by the administration and you work for the mayor, you also work for members of city council. And, I'm not shy to say that, from day one, we've always looked for the balancing act because quite obviously we have an agenda. Sometimes the administration has an agenda. And where do we find that balance when we're not on the same page? And so, moving forward, I'm pretty confident that at least in this body and the relationships that we do have with the current administration and the current mayor, we will be able early and proactively be able to find those middle grounds where we may be going in totally different directions. And that's always been, I think, an issue that needed to be addressed. And I think with you being a new individual coming into a new administration, when we do come across those particular times, we will work in partnership with the council president as well as the administration to figure out how we continue to move in the city of Philadelphia forward. With two agendas, council agenda as well as the administration agenda, but ultimately what's in best interest of the city of Philadelphia as a whole. But I know you on a personal note. I'm proud to see you, rise to the ranks as a young man. This is okay, you from North Philadelphia. That part I ain't gonna hold against you. That's all right. A from Butler area, but that's your district. A from Butler. But nevertheless, though, proud of you, champ. Keep up the good work, man. This is what it's all about. And City Hall is where the rubber meets the road. And so, congratulations on your pre-nomination. And however I can be supportive, we'll be there for you.
Thank you very much, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Keona Sanchez.
That's right, Hunting Park. Can I hear that? Hunting Park.
I
As a
know
young
about-
girl who grew up in Hunting Park, I can tell you on behalf of the residents of Hunting Park, we are extremely proud of your accomplishments. I look forward to inviting Sosi back so the residents there can see that young folks from Hunting Park can aspire, and do contribute. So I want to thank you. Many of you will hear me call Sosi Pedro because that's his name in Spanish. He is bilingual. So he lives and breathes the diversity that he speaks to. I want to emphasize what Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds said about the need for diversity, particularly with the outside law firms. I think this is hugely important, and I do expect that you will work towards that to ensure that the city is providing those opportunities. I'm very excited about your proactive litigation. I think that anytime there's opportunities for the city to, whether it's recouping revenue or protecting consumers, the law department can play a role in really protecting the rights of the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. As it relates to in-house diversity, you will soon figure this out as part of the budget process. We need to commit to providing professional and better training and upward mobility there. Working for government is a sacrifice, and if you're a highly qualified person of color, you got other options, and so we have to really instill and work at providing that upward mobility so that folks have the same opportunities that you did, which is, you go to a firm, you become a partner, you cash out, and you come back and you serve the public. And so I really look forward to working with you as we reach those goals together in the best interest of the city. So congrats, and we're hard clients, and we're going to keep you busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sanchez. I'm glad that you mentioned some of the challenges we have when people ask, why is the law department not as diverse as it could be? One of the challenges we have, quite frankly, is that our starting pay is $50,000. And often we're trying to recruit folks who have gone through law school, have accrued substantial amount of loans. And then once we get them, then there's really, because our pay scale is almost frozen, very few opportunities to rise up. and so we lose them when they get other opportunities. And some of our lawyers, they go to court and they have clients who get paid substantially more working in other agencies without their professional training. So one of the things I'm going to push, not previewing my budget testimony because I see Councilman Jones looking at me, but is to try to figure out a way that we can build in the pay scale so that we can keep people. Our attrition rate last year was about 18% for attorneys, and you can imagine the havoc it really causes for a law firm because you lose people, people get more cases, and you're trying to hire people. So that's one. So I have to deal with the underlying issues as well. I can do as much recruiting as I want, but now what I do when I'm talking to people who are interested in the law department, I start with the salary just to save everybody's time. And so, it's great public service, but said this is what you're going to get paid. And so until those fundamentals are addressed, it's going to always be a challenge.
Chair recognizes Councilman Toppenberger.
Thank you, Council President. Sozi, I congratulate you on your nomination and appointment as acting city solicitor, and I hope to do my part in making you the permanent city solicitor. I'm very delighted to have already started working with you, and the fact that you reached out to us early, met with all council people. Also, your staff and my staff have already met, and I think that's a great thing, so we know where we can work together as well. And also, your own personal background, being an immigrant. I know a little bit about the experience myself, having been the child of two immigrants from Germany. The fact that you're bilingual, or actually a number of languages, I think adds to your personal wealth of knowledge. And the fact that you went to Northeast High and actually had it a little tougher than I in the fact that you had to take many, many buses, which make you personally knowledgeable of the Philadelphia public transit system. I walked. I had to walk, though. My parents wouldn't let me take the bus. And it was a mile walk, not that it was the hardest walk ever. But just to show you're coming from where you did in the city of Philadelphia to Northeast High is something to be said about yourself. And I'm glad Councilman Brian O'Neill brought that up. That's very, very important. I look forward to working with you, and you certainly have my support going forward, and look forward to working with you as long as you want to be city solicitor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Just a couple of questions.
Yes, Council President.
And first, thank you, and I really enjoyed our several conversations leading up to your nomination. But I want to ask you a couple of questions on the record with respect to some of the conversation that we did have.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that earlier I had some concerns, not concerns, but questions about your management of such a large department. But the early responses that we're getting, that you've been doing pretty good, and you hit the ground running, and you're making much needed changes. So I just want to congratulate you. I never represented 150,000 people, and I got this job. And as a council person, I figured out how to do it. So sometimes when you're given the opportunity, you step to the plate and you meet the task, you do it. And I want to congratulate you on doing that as you move ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity, Council President.
Councilman Johnson briefly touched on it. Somewhere along the line, city council and the mayor, they're just not going to agree on anything, on something. Normally, 95% of the time, we agree. Right? Every now and then, there's an issue. And with past administrations and past councils and past solicitors, there were different rulings on issues, sometimes in the same year where there was a ruling in a year. We said, okay, right on. They ruled in our favor. And then before the year was out, there was a change in the ruling. And I think that it's inherent when you have two clients that are on equal footing with respect to the legislative and the executive branch, you're going to always have times when you have to make the decision. And I know we talked about this.
Yes, we did.
And for the public, I really like, because I've been quite clear about this publicly and privately, that I don't believe that you can represent the executive and the legislative branch equally. It's just fundamentally, I just don't know how you do that. How will you do that? And understanding in particular, the current process is, and again, I'll say this in a very I'm a very candid individual, as you know, that there was discussions about a charter change or something short of a charter change. Currently, process is if we pass legislation, the administration ignores it, and we, the council, we have to sue the administration to get that ordinance enacted. And there were some conversations about it being reversed, that we pass an ordinance, and even if we override a mayor or veto, then from our perspective, it should be the law, and the mayor should be responsible for implementing that particular legislation. And if the mayor or the executive branch, they should be responsible. It should be, the onus should be on them to challenge it in court, not the other way around. And not saying that as a leading question. How are you going to deal with that at some point? Because we're going to disagree on something as much as we love Jim Kenney right now. At some point, we're going to disagree on something. How are you going to handle that?
And what I start with, Council President, is with the charter. And even though I represent many clients, I really represent the city of Philadelphia. It's one client. There are different people who interpret it differently. So the way the charter is set up under Section 2105, it anticipates the possibility that council and the mayor are going to have legal disagreements, right? There'll come a point where you pass legislation, there's an ordinance, it is now the law, and the mayor asks for my opinion. And for other reasons, the federal constitution, state constitution, advise the mayor that it cannot be enforced. In that instance, I believe that council has a credible claim for believing that you can't represent me. And there's a safety valve built in 2105 that I am authorized to say, council, you can get outside counsel and then pursue litigation. And that way, it's independent. I won't drive that litigation, and then determine what the outcome should be. And that's what's happened in the past. Now, in terms of whether there's I think you're suggesting a presumption.
Before you move on, because there's another part of that equation. In the past, and I think I'm hearing what you're saying. In the past, there was some question as to whether or not we can only get external representation if the solicitor agreed. The first option was we'd have to be represented by a city solicitor, i.e., a member of your staff. And then if it found that for whatever reason that person couldn't do that, then we were granted an opportunity. So are you telling us we don't have to be in a position?
No, what I'm saying is that under the charter, I represent city council. But when there comes an instance where I refuse to offer services to council, then you're entitled to get outside counsel to represent you. In other words, I have to determine.
No, that's not what I'm saying. And I think Councilwoman Blackwell, I see you on the edge of that table over there. What I'm saying, if we want to be represented by outside counsel, we don't want to be represented by a member of the solicitor's office. Do we have to get the approval from the city solicitor, which I understand we do?
Yes.
But is that approval based on the city solicitor saying that, well, we are not requiring you to take our representation initially, and then as a secondary matter, we might grant you an opportunity to get your own attorney?
Yeah, and in a particular case
Meaning,
where,
is it as of right that we have a right to get an attorney?
No, because the charter makes clear that the city solicitor represents, in that particular instance, the solicitor represents the member of council unless there's a conflict. And if there is a conflict, then...
So only if there's a conflict?
And then that has to be in writing under the charter. Because the presumption is that if it's in relation to your official business, then you're represented by the city solicitor.
Okay. So that's another way, because lawyers, I know this about lawyers, they don't ever answer the question. I got a bunch of them working for me, man. I can't ever get a straight answer. So the bottom line is, if we have an issue, somebody's suing us, whatever, and we want outside counsel because we believed either that particular case or that matter before us as a defendant in a civil case, it's our preference to have an outside attorney. We cannot have that outside attorney unless there is a conflict with the solicitor's office representing us.
That's correct, and you have the solicitor's consent in writing. That's clearly under the charter. That's the way it works.
Okay.
And, I'm very confident that I want you
That's kind of
Council President, I want you to have
that's kind of
I want you to have
inconsistent
my
with the
lawyers
conversation that
representing
we
you.
had earlier.
I want you to have my lawyers representing you because this is all they do. In other words, they do the municipal representation, and they're amongst the best lawyers in the city. That's a substantive matter. But
I hear
according
you,
to
but
charter,
that's somewhat inconsistent with the earlier conversation we had. At least my interpretation.
that's subsequent to your conversation. I actually went back and looked at the charter.
All right.
And that's I always when I testifying before you, I always start with the charter and go from there. I think when we had this conversation, and I'm not going to get into the details of it. That was in December before I sat down and studied it. But that's what I'm providing today is the answer, and I can provide you if you want additional written description of that. I'm very happy to do so.
Okay. So with respect to the specific case, it is your belief when there is a conflict between or disagreement between the administration that it should continue to be a case where if we pass a law, we, city council, and mayor vetoes it, and we override the veto, so it's a super majority, that the mayor chooses to ignore the legislation, we still have to challenge that in court versus the mayor have to challenge the validity of the law that was passed?
Yeah, because a couple of things. One, the role of the solicitor in that scenario is not to, we can't make the mayor enforce it, not enforce it. What happens, the mayor comes to the solicitor and says, here's this law, is it legal or not? And we advise based on these other provisions, right, based on our view, it is not legal. But the mayor can still decide to enforce it if the mayor wants.
But the
difference, Council President, is just very quickly is that the mayor doesn't have the option of getting outside counsel, right? So whereas there's a conflict, city council can actually obtain additional counsel, other non-solicitor to represent counsel. The mayor is stuck with us, even if he disagrees with our view. He's stuck with me.
You say the mayor is stuck with you?
Yeah.
The
So if
mayor
I give
can't-
the mayor an opinion that the mayor doesn't like, or if there's the mayor has to can't get outside counsel.
Mayor
right?
cannot get outside
The mayor
counsel.
cannot. Only council can.
Well, that's because the solicitor represents the mayor.
And city council.
Oh, I'm just saying.
I feel like we're going around.
City solicitor is in the mayor's cabinet, right? Am I correct?
Yes, you have to be,
So
absolutely.
if the city solicitor is in the mayor's cabinet, then they work for the mayor.
And the
They're
city
not
solicitor-
a member of this body, they're not a member of this staff. They work for the mayor. I mean, this is go back, now this fundamentally, it's not personal.
No, it's not
I just
personal.
don't think
I'm going with
you
the
can
charter.
represent
I mean-
those two bodies. I don't know how you do that.
There's a potential conflict, and there's that safety valve described where if there's a conflict, there's an instance where I can't represent both the city council and the mayor. The safety valve is then city council can get obtained outside counsel,
So,
and then to avoid that conflict.
and you will continue to represent the mayor.
Yes,
So you work for the mayor.
I'm not gonna have you have me concede that. I work for the mayor and for city council unless there's a conflict.
So if there's a conflict, why wouldn't both the mayor and council have to seek outside attorneys?
The mayor doesn't have that right. He can't do it.
So should the mayor have that right in the event that
Well,
there's a conflict?
That's a different issue. I don't know.
That's a different what?
I'm saying I'm going from what the charter provides right now, under Section 2105. That if there's an instance where the city solicitor refuses to render services to council,
Right.
then council can obtain outside attorneys to represent them.
Okay, so sounds like now we're back at square one of my position as it relates to the city solicitor. Because I was also under the impression that you were going to find out if there was a way that we can work this out without a charter change. And I'm not hearing that now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm just recollecting without getting to the details of conversations, private conversations, that maybe I interpreted it wrong, that there was going to be a way that we can have an environment where we felt much more comfortable that we had representation, direct representation, separate and aside from the executive branch. Councilman Johnson.
Well, thank you, Council President. I just want to chime in on two aspects. And I wholeheartedly support this gentleman for the position, and I think...
So do I.
And I know you're getting to the fact of the actual structure. And so it goes beyond you, Sosi. This is really beyond how we operate as a government in two totally different branches. Do we also have data on the numbers of times in which we have overruled the second floor administration and the mayor has decided not to enforce the legislation in which we overrule? Is there is there any documentation that we can actually look at as members of this body just to take a look at?
I'm sure there is. We don't have it here today. Well, I don't have it here today.
Yes.
I could think of a particular case, since I'm being asked this question. I wasn't going to bring up the specifics of it last year on the PGW issue. When there was a ruling on PGW earlier in the year, and later in the year, there was a reversal of that order as it relates to the authority relating to some of the conversations around the sale of PGW. That concerned me significantly.
Yes.
I
understand.
It
also seems like the will of the council, shall be followed. I think there needs to also be maybe another preliminary follow-up conversation with the administration. Key members of council kind of figure out, as we move forward, what that structure looks like. Because I'm listening to the dialogue and the conversation, and it's really about the structure of government between the two branches and the equal representation of these two branches. And there's going to have to be some level of a conversation probably moving forward in the future. That's just my input, but I would like to also see the case studies in which administrations, rather was the prior one or the prior one before then, when they never enforced the will of council, and we all represent, people just as well as the administration.
Yeah. Well, I think I read somewhere there was a issue with respect to libraries, as the other Councilman Green pushed forward issues with respect to the closure of libraries. So it comes up. There are instances, and we can detail the. So I'm just, fundamentally, it could be you, it can be the prior city solicitor, or whomever. I just don't fundamentally understand how you can represent two people equally when there's going to be this inherent conflict in some cases. And there's a little different conversation today than it was earlier, but that's fine.
And
like
Council
you say,
President, just to assure you, this is something that I want to continue talking to you about, sort of further explain sort of my views on this and how that could be reconciled with the safety valve and so forth. But I see this as the beginning. If you give me the opportunity for further discussions on this,
absolutely.
But what I wanted to establish as a preliminary point is to make sure that members of council have a relationship with me and feel comfortable with me, and so that we can have those conversations.
Right. No, personally, I'm going to vote for you. It's for the record. This is my job. I got to do my job. I can't act like we didn't have these conversations and these concerns weren't raised. I still have the charter change bill in my desk that I drafted when nobody even heard of you. So it's like I'm saying, it's not related to you. I just think that personally, I think the conversation around elected city manager, city lawyer is a conversation that people should have. Some people don't like it. I'm fine with that. Bottom line is, that's truly an independent individual. If you're talking about representing the city, then I think that there probably should be an individual who is independent of all bodies. That person might ultimately get out of control, but that person will ultimately get bounced out of office. It's not unprecedented. A number of municipalities around the country have elected representation as it relates to the law. Okay, but I'm, fully prepared to continue to have the conversation.
Absolutely.
But I can't not sit here and act like somehow that level of concern was not raised, not only with you, but with the administration about this whole issue and the prior administrations about how you get represented on an equal basis. Sure.
This is an issue that I've dealt with over the years internally, just reflecting on and I've had conversations with members of the law department over the years about the representation of the executive and legislative branch. And I think part of the challenge comes in certain issues when you have a situation like, I'll say, the Police Advisory Commission, where council passes legislation and council is of the belief and perspective that the legislation created the Police Advisory Commission, and the administration is of the perspective that the executive order created the Police Advisory Commission, and that's where you have that tension. As you said, Council President, there are other jurisdictions throughout this country where you have an elected legal officer, but that also provides challenges, and you have areas like we have here in the city of Philadelphia where you have an appointed legal officer that represents the executive and legislative branch. So I think it's something that we can continue to have that dialogue and that conversation going forward. But I think from Mr. Chilani's perspective, it's something that will be better going forward, also having a mayor that was a member of this body, but also sensitive to those issues as well.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm sorry.
the last mayor was a part of this body as well.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
I mean, the current mayor was a part of this. Current mayor was a part of this, member of this body, and had a bill drafted, and it may have actually been introduced that talked about changing the charter with respects to the requirement for council to get a lawyer to sue the mayor in the event that the executive branch refused to implement legislation, which is exactly what I'm talking about now, and that did not proceed. So, sometimes, well, I'm not going to go any further. So I'm saying this is not a novel idea that I'm talking about. Is this, look, I'm a member of council, been here for 6 years. I'm going to always protect the rights of city council, whatever, all right? I get criticized sometimes because, he's trying to take over the world, and no, I'm representing city council, and these wonderful people here elected me to be the presiding officer. And I think I would be neglectful if I didn't ask these very specific questions as it relates to the rights of city council as a body. I mean, that's my job.
I understand that, Council President.
All right. And Councilman Squilla, let me call Council. I got a couple other. Councilman Squilla had actually gone in the direction of pressing his button. Hold, Councilman Johnson. Let Councilman Squilla, he's been teed up for a while. Oh, you get that? Okay, I'm sorry. Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to be recorded as voting aye on all appointees. I need to be excused. Is that okay, Council President?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
A pleasure. I want to thank you, too, also for reaching out and meeting with the council during the process. I think that goes a long way to showing, hopefully, the intentions of working for both council. I know it's a very difficult situation, and it's hard. My question is, and I felt this, and I don't know if every member of council felt it, but during the process and when we went through the law department in order to get a report, a solicitor opinion, it seemed like every time we did it, it was just something we couldn't do, and it was find a way to say, nah, you just can't do that. And it was very frustrating. Is there a way with you in leadership, is obviously you have a lot of the same people in the department, and to come up with ways to say, you know what, maybe you can't do it this way, but you know what, legally we could do this to make it happen. And just, it's not like council members are in there to try to break the law or do something illegal, but we need help when we go to the solicitor. And the frustrating part previously under the other administration seemed to be that it was always, you can't do it. So I would hope to see if that's something that you would work on or work with us on to try to get those things rectified, or at least work with us to come up with different solutions if our idea is not a solution at all.
Absolutely, that's something we intend to do, and I'm also hoping that members of council get us involved early, and then that way we can be, we can provide further assistance right from the beginning, if we can. Okay.
I mean, because it's not an easy job, and I know it seems like a conflict. We are engaged in those issues also. Sometimes, feel like you're in a conflict, but as representing both us and council, if the administration has one idea how to do things and council may have something different, you have to weigh in on that, because at the end, you want to solicit opinion. What's the opinion? And I think as long as this council believes it's fair, I think it will be fine. I think if it always seems to be going one way, all of a sudden we start thinking, well, you know what, maybe this isn't fair. So I would just hope to give us a chance as council members, and we give you a chance as the solicitor to work with us and draw a conclusion on how that comes. I think so far it's been great. I think you've been open to our suggestions, and I think it'll take a little bit of time moving forward. But Council President, I like also have to be excused if I like to vote aye on all. Thank you.
Hurry up, we're going to lose the quorum. I got to stop asking questions so we can vote. But I do have a couple of more. Councilman, you had a question? Don't leave.
Real quick, Council President, and it's more of a statement, and I will be quick before we do lose that quorum. And I thank you for coming here and testifying, and going into our 5th year, start of a new term. I mean, I haven't had a city solicitor to come, or a new city solicitor, assuming the vote goes well. We'll keep you in suspense here. But coming to our offices and asking what the problems are, what the priorities are, and how we feel. So, I mean, you hear the concerns of City Council. You heard them in private meetings, trying to get a sense on where we are. And I think it does come down to conflicts. Right? Where there are conflicts, we feel comfortable that we're going to get equal representation under the charter. And, I mean, I feel comfortable in your answer. It doesn't seem like it happens a vast amount of times. It seems like it's very infrequent that it does happen. But when it does happen, it's pretty big, right? They're big issues. And I'm hoping that, what allows you by the charter, that we as council has that equal representation that is given and it's authorized for that level of assurance. So I think it comes down to a comfort level, knowing that when there is a conflict, that we're entitled by the charter to have equal representation. And, hope it doesn't happen, but it may, and it is, I think your presentation is going to be tested over the next 4 years and maybe 8 years. So look forward to working with you, look forward to working with your office, and, I'll try not to lose a quorum. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Well said. A couple quick questions, and one I do want to say, I appreciate your emphasis on confidentiality with respect to opinions sought from council and other entities. I mean, there was actually former conversation at an earlier confirmation hearing where the person actually said that all confidential opinions sought by the solicitor should be available for the public. And I'm assuming that you don't agree with that.
No, what I do hope is that there's some instances where, if we think it's an important opinion, that we ask the person who sought the advice permission, right? And because we're not putting your stuff out there unless you prepared to waive that. But there are also instances where an opinion is not sought, but it's necessary for me to provide my views on certain legal issues. That I do publish that, but it doesn't reveal.
I'm sorry, the clock was making noise.
No, it's okay.
I didn't hear the last part.
There may be instances where I have to provide my views on certain legal issues, but without disclosing the confidentiality of the person seeking it. So to be very clear, it's not my intention to waive confidentiality, because also it really goes back to a comfort level. You want to know if you're seeking advice so you can formulate a policy that I'm providing you with a legal opinion, that it's going to be confidential, so you can be free with me. I want all of you to be free with me when you speak to me.
Okay, so I want to be clear. I understood what you just said. If I ask you for an opinion about a matter, you give me a response confidentially, then you think, though, in the event that their subject matter comes up at some point in time, you think you have the authority, or you like to be able to share that opinion without giving the name of the individual who requested that opinion?
No, there are two ways. One, if you ask me, you have a question, and it's relevant to what you're doing, and you give me, personal information, and you give me information that I need to be able to provide an opinion, that's going to be confidential. But there may be instances where where I need to provide my views on the legality of, a particular statute or particular provision. My views are not themselves confidential. You see? So I'm entitled to give that view without necessarily implicating any confidentiality.
But your view is the opinion.
No, I'm not talking about a formal opinion. I'm saying, it may be an instance where...
I don't understand.
It may be an instance where a client asks, what do you think about, if I'm providing an opinion on a particular issue, right, without revealing your confidentiality. I can give, my views themselves are not confidential, but I can't reveal your information.
I'm not sure I understand that response, but I'm going to,
Okay.
It sounds like you're, all right, okay, whatever. All right, one last question. We recently introduced legislation on contracts where we probably will end up getting sued, basically that there's an EOP commitment and entities are in non-compliance. We plan on putting the authority in terms of enforcement for companies that contracted with the City of Philadelphia, made commitments as it relates to diversity on hiring, contracting, things of that nature. They don't comply, labor standards, who will hopefully be the enforcement entity, goes out, shuts them down. They sue us because they don't think we had the authority or whatever. Will your department be the entity that will represent labor standards in that particular case?
I'm sorry,
Labor standards.
The Office of Labor Standards, yes. Yeah. In that particular, I'm having a hard time because I can't see it.
Yeah, I hate this thing.
I'm not deaf, it's just that it's hard for me.
And I say, I don't understand why this has to be here. Or they say, well, it has
hard for me to follow
something to
sometimes.
do with
I
the
apologize.
wires. Trust me. I hate these things. Let me step over here.
No, it's okay.
Hold up. Now this wire doesn't work.
I'll move this way.
There you go. No, my question is that we are in the process of hopefully moving towards legislation that will get a responsibility of the Department of Labor Standards to enforce non-compliance issues with respects to contracts. We have these various contracts across the board where people make commitments to certain diversity issues.
And they don't live up to them.
Not a quota, but it is if the labor standards determines that particular company or recipient of the contract made no effort to reach these goals, they will be given the authority to terminate any future contracting authority with that particular company. If Suman will get sued, will your department be the department that will represent the Labor Standards Department in such a lawsuit?
I don't know. I mean, I would think so. Given the facts that the way you presented to me, it would seem so once it's passed and if it's enacted. But
Okay.
I have to admit, I'm not particularly sure if that would
Okay,
be the
that's
case.
fine. No,
but I think it would be.
All right, okay. All right. I had this other question, but I don't need to answer this. All right. You know what? Let me ask. Somebody took the time. So, even in the absence of a conflict, council will prefer to engage outside counsel rather than use the city solicitor's office. The interpretation is that you do have the authority under the charter to authorize what council requested without there being a conflict.
I have the authority, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that authority.
So you could just, if you decide to, you give us an outside attorney, even if it's not a conflict. Because you said earlier, in your earlier testimony, you said it has to be a conflict.
No, and this, let me just be very clear. There may be instances where we have, and we do this often, we get outside counsel sometimes if a counsel has specialized skill that we don't have in the law department. So you can get outside, this happens with administrations, this happens under context, where I authorize a non-solicitor to handle the case where that particular outside counsel has specialized skill that we don't have in-house. So it would be a conflict or another instance where if somebody has some level of skill that we don't have.
I see, I'm asking you, do you have the authority to authorize counsel to hire an outside contract regardless of a conflict or regardless of specialized skill sets with respect to the attorney? If we just say we want to have an outside attorney for a particular matter, say, for instance, we do the resolution like we did before years ago to hire somebody to represent us on gun laws.
Yeah.
You have the authority.
I have the authority, yes.
To do that.
Yeah, and there are two instances are usually if it's conflict or if they have specialized skill.
No, I'm saying other than those two.
Oh, other than, yeah, I always have the authority, yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying those are typically when it occurs, with the conflict and the specialized skill.
All right.
But I do have that authority.
All right, okay. All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions of this witness? There being none, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
We will continue.
Council President, may I be excused?
I'm sorry, yes, please.
Okay, I wasn't
I'm sorry.
sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your testimony. Seeing none, this concludes the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole. We will now go into our public meeting, and the chair recognizes Councilmember Heenan for a single motion on the 4 resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the resolutions number 160035, 160036, 160037, and 160038 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that resolution number 160035, 160036, 160037, and 160038 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries, and these resolutions will be reported from this committee with favorable recommendation at the next session of council. That concludes the business of the committee. Thank you all very much.